Greetings, one and all. Just a second as I double check that the audio has come through. Well, some of it's come through. Okay, trying this. All right, there we go. That was the problem. Much better. Actually, wait a second. We're changing the, I'm going to change the music up here. Something that's fitting for today's stream. Okay, I should have taken. There we go. Brings back memories. I wonder. I thought that was the case. Much better. Let's give this a try. Well now, that is delightful that it would work the first time and not have to worry about that glitching and causing audio problems. Got to get me a slightly better hat one of these days. One that fits my head a little bit better. It is kind of interesting, actually. That hat used to fit me for like maybe a year, and then I outgrew it. And I've never gotten a replacement for it. Okay, let's bring back the tablet. There we go. Hey, howdy, hey, Pantheon. How are you doing, sir? It has been a busy time for me. It will be busy for another month, and then we'll start to slow down. How go your projects? There we go. Starting another now. Excellent. Well, I hope you find success with that. Trying to refresh myself on the controls of this program. Gonna be lurking, then gonna sleep, says Bastion. Thanks for stopping by, Bastion. Well, we have a couple of things that we're going to be covering tonight. I really want to have a bigger stream for tonight. This is the 1 year from when Castercraft got established. Now, technically, it had been established much earlier, but when officially kind of became my new goal, it was last year. I want to say that goal is going to be getting doubled down upon. And very soon, I'm going to be showing you guys what it is that will entail. Tonight, I'm going to be teasing some of that. Some of the big things that are going to be coming. Some of the things that I've been working on and off for the last year. Technically year plus, but intentionally and intensely for the last year. Now, some people probably would have been able to get everything all squared away in that amount of time. Not me. It takes me a while longer. I internalize things way too much, and I do that with my art. Kind of like this. I could be continuing with the face that was already there, but there's like a feeling that I get about something where it has to be a certain way. And sometimes it needs some space to go back and then attack it anew. That's what we're kind of doing with this drawing. All right, now this is my warm-up sketch. It's going to get more refined for long. But one of the things I can start with is one of the big projects is indeed a Milo project. It has been a long time of development, a lot of planning, a lot of ideas going down. You are not going to hear me give anything more about it until the anniversary stream, which will not be on the official anniversary, of course, because that would be tonight. By the way, happy Beaver Day. But next time that we have any sort of information given about it, it will have a sample of it. So you can be able to see that, yes, it exists, and how much of it has been completed. From there, I will start these steps to take it to the next level and refine it, till it's a finished product. I've been thinking about Milo's story for a long time. Ever since the last stream that I did with him. The last stream was a tough one. I'm going to be reminiscing on that one in a little bit here. But around that time frame, a lot of things were in the process of different stages of falling apart. Lurking, much appreciated, Pantheon. Hope you find some success with your projects. But one of the things that took place around that time, someone reached out to me and asked where I thought the character was going. Now, I had a backstory and a theoretical path forward, just because you want your character to have some life to him, some idea that there's more that's going on with him than just what the audience is seeing. But I couldn't go that way. I couldn't mention what I really thought it was that was going to happen with the character until I knew more about if I was even going to do anything with the character from that point on. I had no real intent of doing anything because it was a throwaway character. Well, then, around that time, I got thrown away. Thrown away by the people I was working with. And suddenly, I had a very interesting time frame of where I had a lot of time to think. A lot of time to reevaluate things and to plan anew. And around that time, I also got horribly, horribly sick. And my final stream with Milo got canceled. And I was going to have the character walk off into the sunset. I had it all scripted. Milo was going to go on one last activity, and he was going to find himself heading north and saying, well, it's time for us to move on and for our adventures to end. That was my plan. Milo was going to move north, and that would be it. The end of Milo. And then I'm sitting down at the PC, turning it on, power's turning on, and I start having horrible, horrible chills. And I start quaking so much that I just shut off the PC, went over to the bed, collapsed. And I was like, God, why did this happen? I was ready to do in the character, and I had already decided I was never going to do anything more with him in the streams. And lo and behold, here I was, suddenly ill, miserable, and wondering what the whole point of it was. Things had fallen apart career-wise, and the business partnerships I thought had been formed had ended, and so thus I was without direction and without any clarity on what I could do, let alone should. So there I laid for hours, days. It's one of the few illnesses where it just like hit like a freight train. Well, I couldn't think a whole lot during that time frame, but when I could, I went down to my local coffee shop and I just opened up all my notes, and it was just poring over them and thinking, what should I do? Because I was about ready to throw, well, I had already in my mind thrown Milo away. And I did not want to try to do that stream anew because Milo was designed to work with other characters, and I didn't want to do a solo one. It was over for me. But people kept asking what happened to the character. Now, I'm sure most of those people don't even remember those comments, but I internalized them. I internalized them a lot. And then, I just sat down and it's like, well, okay, I'm just going to tinker. What would Milo's story theoretically look like? Because my idea was that I didn't want to have a character that I didn't know where he was going to end. So, started with the ending and started to backtrack, and push came to shove, and I had to put him away again. And so I thought, well, that was interesting. I mean, he has a story. I don't know how worthwhile his story would be. And then Ha reached out and wanted to have the Milo art done. And around that same time, for whatever reasons, Rolling Chairs had this harebrained idea that Milo needed to have a silly lore story built up. And, well, that just sparked ideas. And so I sat down and I started tinkering with it. And it's amazing how people can suggest something and it then becomes real over time. So thus, we're at the point of where Milo now has a story arc from start to finish. Right now I count it as 4 parts with a half a part on top of that. But that's all I will say about that. The rest of it will become clear next month. God willing, of course. Let me pull up reference material here. By the way, if you find any of these streams interesting, if you find any of the artwork interesting, whatnot, please be sure to like it. If you dislike it, I welcome that too. It means you're flesh and blood. And I welcome real people who at least spent the time of day to stop by and see what was going on. You may not like what you see here. You may think it's kind of trivial and not very fleshed out. Believe me, I'm working on it. I'm trying to get it more fleshed out. I'm just not showing it until it's at that point. But I am trying. And if you don't like it now, maybe feel free to stop back sometime within the next few months. I know, it's the internet. Chance of someone actually doing that is very, very slim. But, just in case. Just in case you want to see what's going on, it's going to be a little while until this stuff is finally out. Then things will be completely different. Maybe you'll find something of merit. Maybe you won't. But anyway. So what are some of the other things that are going on? What are some of the projects that are happening that is delaying some of these things? Well, one of the big things, and this is, I don't know how relevant this is going to be, but I wanted to be safe. I wanted to be safe than sorry, because I'd seen what happens to people that build content and then they don't have a place to put it. I started the reverse of what some other people might have done. I started with website. It is a fully user, it's a full user experience for people to preview the projects that are being worked on. It's going to have, it has a lot of code in the background that is helping to secure it. It took me a long time to try and figure that out. But all of that is because I've seen so many people have an idea and not be able to turn it into a website where people can actually experience it. In fact, there's one guy that I know who spent thousands of dollars making an entire series of content, and he didn't have a place to put it. And so thus, thousands of dollars ended up being completely worthless to him because, well, he could never get it to work. And so he wanted to get me to help out with the coding of it, and I didn't know where to start with it. I was like, I'm sorry, I've never done something like this. Well, now I do have the experience, and I thought, well, I'm going to experiment with my own site until I finally get this thing squared away. It's just about done. By the way, the radio that you see playing off to the left is part of that website. That is one of the user functions that's going to have, is people will have the ability to impact these streams with the stream radio. But there's other things that are going to be involved too. It may seem kind of irrelevant to, well, why do you need that for material? You need to have the user interface, the ability to create accounts, to do different things, to actually have it function properly. This way you help to prevent the horrible curse of bots. So, was it worthless to go in the way that I did? Yeah, probably. But it's the first time of trying it, and it's the first of trying to do anything like this, intentionally trying to go from start to finish. So I thought it was relevant, and in the end, maybe it was relevant, maybe it wasn't. But you know what? No one will be able to take it down. It's my own platform. There's there will be a way for people to post and comment. For people that are early adapters, you're going to have unrestricted access to it. No problem. I'm not going to try and lock it out for people that join on early. You are going to get that benefit because you were here during the time that I was in my most chaotic and lost state of doing these things, I was in a tough spot and you all were here. This is my way of making sure that gets recognized. Part of it was by doing artwork for you guys, and I haven't been able to do it for a while. Well, now you're going to have the access to this stuff moving forward. I know it's probably not anything of interest to some people, but other people may find that interesting. I know at least a small handful of people are going to be excited about it, and the others are probably more like, well, we keep hearing about it, but don't really know what to quite expect. And I don't blame you if you don't quite understand where some of the stuff is going. But some people do, because they were here from the very early days, and I kind of gave a vision of what I wanted to do, and maybe they remember, maybe they don't. But this is where we move into the next gear. And there's some cool stuff that is planned. Whether or not that actually pans out, again, that's up to God to decide. Now, why do I say that? You've probably heard me say that a bit. It actually goes back to something I remember reading years ago in Scripture. It mentioned about how mankind can have all of his plans figured out. And he thinks that he can find the way forward and that God will somehow bless him in his journey. But here's the thing. There's a lot of times when you do something and God says no. And you don't know why. There's a lot of times when I've wondered, why did it not pan out the way that I assumed that it would? Obviously, there was goodness that was being done. Lord, why did it not happen? It's because it wasn't his will. He wanted something else. I didn't want to get sick when I was getting ready to do my last Milo stream, but God decided otherwise. And lo and behold, here I am, years later now, doing sketches of Milo, however few and far between, and trying to figure out a story with him. Well, not trying to figure out, already figured out, but trying to figure out how to, finalize it. Part of the challenge of doing hair versus hat. The hair feels a bit more natural when you're trying to design the character. Throw a hat on, then you have to try and figure out how the hair is going to compress. One of the benefits of doing things digitally. So after this, there's going to be another piece of artwork that's going to be done. It's going to be, it's going to be the one that Rolling Chairs made the request for. So, Rolling Chairs made the request for, Demon Bear. And Ha wanted to have Milo by the fire. Now, trying to do the Demon Bear concept, because I've been working on that one in isolation, just trying to think of what that would look like. And I do have everything all squared away at this point. But this one proved to be far harder because I had to figure out what was all going to be going into the flames, because it's all his backstory. Now, up until recently, his backstory was very vague. I did not know what I wanted to go with, because this is going to be now a solid character. He's going to be making regular appearances on stuff this channel makes. So, I wanted to make sure that that was a one and done, that I didn't want to have to keep going back and rewriting his history. I wanted it to reflect to how his story would end, so that, which again is why the story had to begin with the ending. Now, it'll make sense one day if I am able to finish the story. But if nothing else, it will be clear and get more. It will keep getting more clear as the story goes on. Okay, I gotta redo his hair now that this is for top one. During the time of actually getting the first story part done, there's going to be a lot of promotional stuff that goes out about it. I don't know how to properly promote something like this, so it's going to be a bit of a shot in the dark. But what else is new? I'm doing a lot of shots in the dark for this channel through the live streams. There's a lot of gambling of is it going to work? Is it not going to work? I think this is actually possible to get it to function the way that I'm kind of hoping. By the way, another thing that's being updated is the whole Silverado system is being updated. And there's going to be more opportunities for users to interact with the stream. This is going to be a big update, not just because of the material that's going on there, but also because of how the user interface is set up. The whole site got an overhaul, and it's not live yet. Right now it's just on my side, but I've been tinkering with it. And one of the things that is incorporated is the ability to stay logged in, because until recently I didn't know how to properly do that. And then when I did find out, I didn't want it to be something where people could be hacked. Why? Because I'm deeply frustrated with how poor security is on other websites, and so that's why I didn't want to incorporate anything like that until recently. Well, I've been tinkering with it, and I think I've actually got it figured out. It's my own system, which means that I have full control over how this security works, and I'm trying to make it as foreign of an idea to a possible hacker. So should you have a password that you want to utilize, that it doesn't get compromised through my system. That's one of the main focuses. But also the other thing is I don't want people to be frustrated by there being glitches. And so that's the other thing I'm doing. I've been testing out to try and make sure glitches don't happen as much as possible. There's still going to be glitches. I'm new to this stuff, and my system is original, and thus it means I don't have people I can turn to when I have a problem. I have to just figure it out along the way. But it's going to be a pretty neat system, and hopefully it will be a good experience for those that utilize it. Another thing is the t-shirts. I've been stress testing them, and they're actually looking good. I've put one through the wash probably about 10 times at this point. 8? No, probably more like 8 times if I'm to properly remember this. So about 8 times. And it has actually gotten better. Some of the paint that was not quite lined up has actually been worn away, and the part that was clear has actually been maintained, which was not planned, but I've learned a little bit through that. So basically, if it doesn't look, super refined, it could be that it's just the extra paint that needs to be washed off. So I'm still experimenting with that. But during the anniversary stream, we're actually going to be making the first shirts, which again, this is like the pseudo anniversary stream. This is the preliminary, because right now I have to do shorter streams for right now, and haven't been able to figure everything out. So it's tough being a one-man crew. But it works out, and it is for a time. There's going to be a survey question I put out soon, and that is going to be when the final material is going to be announced. When the announcement of that a near final draft is ready. I'm going to be mentioning about mediums. What sort of final product would be of interest to people? Because I don't know. I really don't. Some people are like adamantly opposed to one type or another, and so it's been a tough one for me to try and I put out preliminary questions about that, and I haven't really gotten any good solid feedback, which is understandable. Not everyone's going to want to mention about it. People mostly just want to see what you come up with. So if you do take a preference, be sure to mention when I actually post that. It will be on X, and it will also be in the Discord. Milo's not the only one in these plans. He's one of many different parts of the plan moving forward. I've been working on a couple of projects. Again, all trying to get the stories figured out. So there's Milo. There's a sci-fi story. And there are animations, of which you've been seeing some of them. By the way, the animations are finally starting to come out. And the renders are looking decent. Let me actually give you a quick preview of what these renders are looking like. This is just one of the shots. But it's turning out basically as I was hoping. Which has been a very frustrating thing, trying to get it to look correct. Because every time I did it was glitching. Something was bugged out, and I couldn't figure out what. Well, I finally got my answer. It was the clouds of the scene. The clouds were glitching out the entire scene, but I'm not sure as to why, because they were working just fine until recently. So, thus, it caused about 3-4 months of banging my head on the keyboard to try and figure it out. So, it now is known what was going wrong. Okay, so here is one of the more... Here's the most recent render. Now, this is not super fancy. There's not a whole lot of movement in it. But scenes like this, I couldn't render either. Even though very little is happening. Everything would be glitching out. The renders took forever and a day. And now they finally actually take a reasonable amount of time. So, here is another one. This is one that I shared on the Discord the other day. And that is almost exactly how I was hoping it would turn out. So, it's been a long road to try and get that squared away. But anyway, those renders are part of this whole venture. So the Lego stuff, there's Milo, there's the Snowball characters. There's a lot that's going on. And the goal is that this year, so last year was like basically all the planning, trying to get it to this point where material can start being created. And now the goal is to try and churn out as much and as fast as I can, based upon what the chosen medium is for some of this stuff. It could delay it a bit. Based upon what the feedback is, it could delay things. I'm very much trying to figure out the right way to do this, so again, my apologies if it takes a long time, and if you maybe get a little frustrated, like, why is it taking forever? It's taking forever because I don't know what I'm doing, and I admit that. I don't know. I am trying my best to try and break into a world of entertainment that I've seen others fumble horribly, and I don't want to fumble it myself. I don't have a whole lot of people I can be able to ask for help with. And so, whatever feedback you give is welcome. That's why if you like or dislike these streams, I welcome both. It helps me to know what I'm succeeding at and what I'm failing at. And believe me, when it comes to live streams, I mess up a ton. I'm terrible at live streams. But when it comes to this material, I hope to get it right the first time. But based upon track record, that never happens. So I guess we'll wait and see what happens. I was gonna do a dramatic reading of part of the stuff I've done for Milo so far, but then I realized that all the stuff I could have done would have been far too, it would reveal too much of the story, because the parts that I got refined the most are the parts that mattered the most. And so I would want to have something that's a little bit more of a tease than that doesn't quite convey the material in a way that people would immediately know what's going on. So maybe during the next stream that we do of this, the second part of this anniversary stream, we'll cover some of that. Maybe we'll do a dramatic reading, or maybe I'll have an audio. I don't know. And I know it's probably not going to be something where we get a whole lot of people for it. I stress too much about trying to get this stuff figured out. If you look at the original launch stream, it's horrible. I wanted to go out and delete it because it was so bad. The quality was horrible. But, so that was a whole lot of effort I put into something that didn't actually work. Maybe I'm doing something similar this time around. Maybe it's not going to work. I don't know. Next month, when the Milo story gets announced, one of the things that's going to probably happen is I'm probably going to put in a fairly substantial investment into trying to promote the story. It's the first time I've ever done something like that. And it won't happen until the story is ready, like basically in hand, which you're going to see it in hand, but it's not going to be the final version. I want there to be a final thing in hand to say, this is ready. I'll need to try and get a test audience for it. I have no understanding if the story currently makes sense. It makes sense to me, but I'm the only one who's been studying it. I'm the only one who's been reading it. I know where the story is going. And I did a test like this a couple of years ago with my sci-fi story. And I noticed that some things which were clear to me were very confusing to others. And so I did a little survey and I tested it on some people, and some people came back with very good information that I was able to act on and make the story make a lot more sense. I moved some things up that were originally much further on in the story. I moved some things back that were much earlier because it didn't make sense. So, yeah, it's I expect there'll be a little bit of that going on for the summer, testing it out. So I'm guessing by midsummer to fall is when I would actually start promoting the product. And believe me when I say that it will be, I'm trying to make it as unique and as true to the values that I hold as I can. I don't want this to be a story of mindless violence. I don't want it to be a story of pointless bitterness. I want everything to have a meaning to help give the reader or the watcher or however this media gets consumed, that they will see something of merit that they can be able to learn from. And some people maybe won't want that sort of a concept. Maybe they don't want to have something where you learn from. But it would make me very uncomfortable telling a story that doesn't have a purpose, that doesn't have a reason to be told. Why would you want to listen to this story rather than any other one out there. There's a couple of cowboy related stories out there. There's a lot. What makes this one different? Why would anybody give it the time of day? Well, you will see with the first iteration of the story, it's going to solve a lot of that problem by attacking first the reason the story exists, why it is different, and why it will matter compared to other Wild West sort of tales. It's not going to be boring by any stretch. It may have some slow moments, but the story was very much focused primarily on being as kind of fast-paced as possible, while maintaining a level of civility and enough time for the reader to learn along the way. So you're going to see some things in the final product that is things that people once knew, but things that I've noticed a lot of people since the modern era has really kicked off into full swing have forgotten or have never even heard of in the first place. Some of the stories that you heard Milo tell are going to appear in this saga, but it is all based upon history. So you're going to see things that take place that if you were familiar with the original story, you will actually see some of that playing out again. Now granted, most of you have never seen it, or you never saw the whole story. And so I don't expect you to know all the Easter eggs. This is designed for a whole new audience. The only thing that really persists is the character of Milo. Everything else is practically new, or it's been reimagined in the appropriate way. Not in the way that Hollywood does it. It's been reimagined to help unify the story, to give it, to refine it down into the pieces that worked, and to skip over the parts that didn't work. Now, one of the things that most everyone knows about Milo, but the audience will not when they first see it, is there is a connection with the Civil War that takes place. Now, one of the things that you will notice with a lot of material that comes from the Wild West is a lot of characters have some sort of backstory with the Civil War. Now, what we go into with the story of Milo is we actually start to see why that actually happened. Because a lot of stories do have Civil War elements to it. But it's usually that, oh, well, somebody was on the winning side, someone was on the losing side, or somebody got pushed off. And we never quite understand as to what was the reason for that. It's always just left up to the viewer to figure that out for themselves. Well, that once worked, back when people actually knew their history, but they don't know their history anymore. So you kind of have to go back and actually explain why it is that you have people from the Civil War that are going west. And And Milo takes a turn because it becomes a bit more urgent for him to have to leave. And we go into the reasons as to why. You don't really get it up in a clear message immediately, but for those that have seen the older streams, you will immediately know where it is going. And believe me, the Civil War is actually a very, very sensitive subject. I know a lot of people who get very passionate about their opinions about the Civil War, to the point where it almost becomes impossible to carry on a conversation. It's just that it can become so passionate that we demonize the people of the era, and we immediately start to write them off as, oh well, we know exactly how you were thinking, we know why you were behaving the way you did. Nobody actually knows anymore because we can't go out and ask them. Well, Milo explores how you can have a couple of different reasons for some of these things to transpire the way that they do. Why a character has to leave, why a character bothers to carry resentment with them, why some learn to move on and others do not. Well, for Milo, I won't say as to how his story will pan out, because that will be something for people to, get a chance to experience in the story and not have it spoiled. Not like we have a whole lot of people here that are probably going to be, upset if it gets spoiled or not. But anyway, it's just something that is running through my mind. I don't want to ruin the experience, but I will mention the history around it, just so people understand it, so when they see it, it makes sense. Now, the Civil War, one of the things I will mention about it is that we think very much about the aspect of how slavery was involved. For example, we forget that there's actually people that were not fighting for that. They were fighting for something completely different. And it's important to remember that, because we in our modern day, we start to assume that we know exactly why people are the way that they are, why they believe what they believe, and we start to demonize people immediately and forget to ask, well, maybe I don't fully understand their story. That's one of the reasons why Milo is from the South. And actually, that was very important why I chose that. I thought about choosing someone from the North, and around the time frame, I was dealing with the deep question of resentment and animosity, and I wanted to have a character that could explore some of those ideas. Now, granted, when that finally came out to play in the original live streams, it went off horribly, and it turns out that the people I was trying to stream it with didn't quite understand how to do a build-up, and so everything ended very quickly. And there was no chance to really explore that aspect of it. But we will get a chance to see some of that. Not in the thing that I'm doing immediately, but eventually you will get to see that. It's one of the reasons why Milo started and ended his streams with civility, and why there were so many times when he would talk about it. We got to remember to have civility in everything that we do, because there is terrible things in this world, and if we are going to go around thinking ill of each other, then we're not going to be able to deal with those problems. His character is designed to show somebody who realizes there's more at stake. And so then he becomes focused on trying to solve the problem and leave the incivility behind, because he can see what hotheads can do, and it doesn't turn out well. Because he was fighting for a side where hotheads start to cause problems, of which is the story of the Sergeant, as you will recall from the live streams. Now that story arc, I won't say whether or not it's still there or not, but I will say that there are elements of it that are still there. The whole backstory had to be redone to try and incorporate some of these, some of the lessons in a much more methodical way. And by the way, when these stories actually do come out, you're not going to hear me talking a whole lot about the hypothetical, theoretical scenarios that are going to be in there. You're going to have to just, when that finally begins, you're going to have to just wait. And you'll have to see it as it comes out. Before we continue, I'm going to take a quick break. Be right back. All right. So there's going to be a couple of panels in this area here. So let's increase the size of this now that I'm happy with how it's looking. And then from there, we'll proceed to finish up the details in there. By the way, just another reminder, if you see anything of merit here, it'd be much appreciated if you would like the stream and comment. And if you dislike it, well, at least you're telling me that you're flesh and blood, and I welcome it. I really like this software, by the way. Clip Paint is... I used to want Photoshop so badly, and then I got Photoshop and I realized I didn't like it. And this software just keeps getting better with each iteration. So now we got to make several scenes in these flames. Then the flames will be stretched out to properly incorporate it. All the different story elements. Well, I'm going to start off by doing all the different story elements. Then they'll be reorganized. This is why we're doing this digitally and not on paper immediately. And then we'll take it and we'll draw it on paper at a later date. Which will actually turn out much better, because drawing on paper is so much easier for me. I very much favor working on paper, even though it takes some more effort to do. Just a preliminary thing, and I realize that we're most likely going to just have lurkers for this evening. But when it comes to the media that you like to be entertained by, what are your favorite ways to do that? And what are some ones that maybe that you really enjoyed that you don't see enough of? For example, I myself really enjoy audio dramas. Now, I prefer animation, but audio dramas are like somewhere in the middle. It's not quite, it has the detail of a book, but it has the imagination of an animation. And I actually do really good with audio dramas. Books are super popular, of course. Comics are popular, but man, they take a long time to make. But what is your favorite, and why?
By the way, I gotta figure out how to of the merch stuff that I've been working on. I gotta actually go out and get some stickers. I've been meaning to do that for a while. I was reminded about that recently. That's one of the things you're probably going to see later on this month. I would love to do pins, but pins are very expensive. You have to get them in a substantial quantity. I still also have to figure out the rest of that Christmas ornament, because the person that I was trying to work with to get this done jumped ship on me, so to speak. He said, yeah, you could do it, and then the moment I went over to follow up with him, he was like, actually, no, I don't want to do it anymore. So I didn't press the matter. That's why that got put on hold. Didn't stop, it just got put on hold, like a lot of things I do. Doesn't mean that it's gone forever, it just means that it's probably going to be next Christmas that it comes out. But now I have the whole thing figured out. I have a different guy I'm going to be trying to work with to pull it off. So the chance of that going wrong the second time is less. Let's see here. Nope. That ain't there. Where'd I put that? Oh well. So here's a philosophical question for you. Right now I am doing artwork. I'm creating, so to speak. It's more like I'm capturing. I'm not really creating. I'm capturing. But either way, I'm trying to preserve that which to me, is meaningful, elegant, and beautiful. It's all based upon life experiences. It's based upon things I've studied. It's based upon values that I hold and all sorts of other things. What if you don't have those values? What if you don't have a drive and don't have a desire for the creativity that can come about? What if you don't have a purpose for what you're doing? Will you really care about it enough to preserve it? Will you really strive to refine it? Or would you just say, it's good enough, and just put it out there and not even think about it twice? There's a lot of artists out there that claim to have an idea that never quite see an idea through to its completion. They are very quick to just say, no, that's good enough, and they just throw it out there and they don't think anything of it afterwards. In fact, if they do think about it a second time, they might decide that they don't want it out there, and then thus they got to put it out as quickly as possible. If you were to see the very first iteration of Milo that I was going to put out, you would say, that's pretty bland. It's pretty boring. All that effort for this? Well, I shelved the idea because I was getting that gut feeling. It wasn't what I wanted. It wasn't the Milo that I was expecting to come out of the pages that I had written at that point. Well, after putting Milo on the shelf for several months and returning to it, you know what was interesting was that a lot of the challenges that I was having with it, suddenly all those challenges were gone. Suddenly, the character started to return and actually made sense. By stepping away and saying, not yet, it's not refined enough yet. I didn't force it. I stepped back, and now I look at the story and it feels full, it feels meaningful. Everything has a place, even areas that seem nonsensical. This is me just rambling, so my apologies. My apologies. Okay, so we got actually a long ways on this tonight. Compared to some of the other nights that we've done this is substantial, especially for just an hour and a half of working. We're going to be calling it there. Again, sticking with the starting earlier, even if it's just a little bit earlier, and ending earlier, which is substantially earlier. Normally, we have ended at like 2, 3 in the morning, Alaska time. We're not doing that anymore. And I suspect we're probably going to see a big shift in our and the number of people that probably do show up for these streams. So I do realize that. But I need to be able to do that shift, especially with some of the big projects that are in the works. Again, if you found anything of merit, would you consider liking? If you didn't like it, honestly, I do. Still value a dislike, because it means zero flesh and blood. But we're going to be ending it there. Have a very pleasant evening and morning, everybody. As Milo would say many a time.
Be civil to one another. And we will see you all next time as we try and complete this blueprint for the final image that we will be doing. Until next time, folks, have a very pleasant evening. And be sure to tune in next time when we actually start to go over the specifics of what to expect for these adventures of Milo.